that's what's moving us. I gave everybody a heart today. Please put that heart in your hand and feel it and touch it. It's a cute little heart. I love that we do things from the heart. I believe that if we do things from the heart with strong character, then we can beat for the world. The two character traits I'd like to talk about and discuss tonight are honor and loyalty. I love my dad. He is my true hero. I would like you to ask yourself this question. What is true honor to you? My dad would do wonderful things growing up, and I honor his sacrifices he made for us. When we would sit down at dinner, he would look at my brother and I, he would wait before he ate dinner. And then he would only eat after we ate. And he did this because he wanted to make sure we were full. When my dad was trying to teach us lessons, he would do it in a weird way. I remember one day we were in Kmart, and I was young, 8, and so my brother was 5. And my dad saw this toddler throwing a fit, and my dad threw himself on the floor in Kmart, pounding his arms and his legs up and down, and I took off running. And my brother stayed there and laughed, and he got up and he pulled us together. He said, make sure you behave wherever you are. I learned many lessons from my dad, and he is my hero, and I honor the things he did for us. He worked many jobs. He was full-time in the Army, and then he'd go work his part-time job, and he would get home sometimes late at night. But he would still find time to wrestle and play with my brother and I. And I'll never forget that. Now he's in the 70s, and if I need him, even when he's walking slow, he will come to my aid. He's there for my daughter. He's there for his children. And he's there no matter what, because he loves us and he cares about us. You know, the things we do of honor, we honor our family, but would you honor your enemy? Would you honor the person you don't know at all? The enemy that's trying to destroy you? I would like to tell you the story of Franz Stigler tonight, and Franz demonstrated true honor in the harshest of environments. Franz was a fighter pilot in Germany, and his job was to take down B-17 bombers. Now, the B-17 bombers during this time in Germany were destroying Germany. There's no telling if Franz had lost family members during this aerial bombardment that the Allies were throwing down on Germany, but Franz was not only a fighter pilot, but he was an ace fighter pilot. He only needed one more kill to receive the coveted Knight's Cross, the highest award in Nazi Germany. Franz flew in behind this B-17 bomber and he said, oh, I've got it. But then Franz noticed something. The B-17 bomber had been shot up pretty bad from anti-aircraft guns and machine guns from the other fighter pilots. And the engines were sputtering along, and it was a cold December in 1943, so that the people in that plane had to be cold because it looked like Swiss cheese, Franz had said. And so he decided, I'm going to fly up beside the pilots, and he looked at the pilots, and one of them was bloody, and the other had to be cold because there was open air flying in at the plane because it had been destroyed in the front. But still, the plane sputtered on. Franz couldn't take out the enemy because of his honor. He couldn't take out a defenseless, helpless enemy. So Franz looked at the pilot, and I can envision, and he's trying to get him to land, but the pilots did like this and said no. So then Franz said, well, maybe I can get him to go to Sweden. So he pointed toward Sweden, and again the pilots said no. Imagine the fear those pilots must have felt. And then Franz decided, I'm going to fly with them as far as I can as they make their way back to England. And that's what Franz did, and he stayed with them, and as they got closer and he knew it was his opportunity, he could be shot down, Franz looked at the pilots, saluted, turned around, and went back to Germany. Many years after the war, Franz got to meet the person he did not shoot down that day. That person's name was Charlie Brown, of all things. I love it. It's so funny to me. And they met, and they became lifelong friends. Many of the media and people that heard of the reports asked Franz, "Why didn't you shoot those people down?" He said, "My heart would not allow me to take out a defenseless enemy." Franz demonstrated honor in the harshest of times. What is your heart of honor? What about your heart of loyalty? How loyal are you to your family? I would die for my daughter. I would be there for my wife and my family. I would protect them, and I'm loyal to them. In my job, I'm loyal to the students that I serve. There's 16,000 of them. And to me, that's where my heart lies. And so I'm there for them. But is that true loyalty? I would like to tell you the story about the truest loyalty tonight, and that's the loyalty of our pets. We had a pet named Clem, and he was this Beagle mix, and we had to put him down last year around Thanksgiving. And Clem had gotten very sick. And I wasn't with Clem when my wife and I started dating. She had already had Clem. He didn't really like me, but then he grew to like me. And every time I would get home and open the door, he would run up and greet me, and he had this fur just shedded everywhere. And Clem would shed, and I would knock him off. But then Clem got in my heart. So Clem followed me around everywhere I went in the house. He was so loyal to my wife and I. He would not hang around her anymore if I was around. He always hung around me. And when I would go in the back room, Clem would show up, and he would curl up. He knew not to get super close to me, but he stayed beside me and just looked at me sometimes. And as Clem got sick and he couldn't jump around anymore, he would still be loyal. He would lick us. "I'm here for you." And then we had to put Clem down. I'd like to tell you the story of Hachiko. Hachiko was a dog in Japan. He was an Akita, a large breed Akita. And during this time in Japan, there were only about 30 purebred Akitas left, and he was one of them. The owner was a professor, and his name is Ueno. And Ueno was a professor at the Imperial Tokyo University. And Ueno had brought Hachiko back to the city. Now, in the city this time, there was a movie about this, Hachiko, but the movie doesn't do it justice because Tokyo was huge, nearly 8 million inhabitants. And this train station must have been bustling and crowded. And Ueno and Hachiko would go each morning to the train station, and Ueno would get on the train and go to work, and he'd come back, and Hachiko would be there waiting on him. And then one day, Ueno had a cerebral hemorrhage and died giving a lecture, but Hachiko was at the train station waiting on him. Hachiko never got to see Ueno again. But the next day, Hachiko showed up, and he waited for Ueno, and Ueno didn't show up again. Hachiko did this for 8 years. But imagine the abuse this poor dog must have taken, because he had to look scary to these people at the train station. They probably threw things at him, cussed at him, chased him off, but he would find a way to get back as close as he could to be a part and wait for his owner. He was so loyal. He was loyal from the heart. And then one day, this old student of Ueno's had written a bunch of articles. He heard about Hachiko, and he wrote about Hachiko, and things changed. You see, we take up a lot of abuse sometimes sticking to our loyalty. But if you stick to it, you can be celebrated. Things changed so much that when the country read about Hachiko, he became super famous. So when he would go up to the train station, commuters and store owners would come up to Hachiko and greet him and love him and feed him. And for the rest of the days of his life, even though he was probably still looking for Ueno, he lived happy. He died in 1935, and upon his death, he was celebrated as a hero. You see, the military and the Japanese officials had used Hachiko as a starting point to be loyal to country, and they were. He was celebrated. They built statues for Hachiko. Books were written. Children's books were written. And even after his death, he was celebrated. And still to this day, he's celebrated each year for his loyalty. How loyal are you? Where's your heart of loyalty? We have a heart of honor and a heart of loyalty. I believe that if you allow them to be pure, they will be till the end of time. Thank you.